Cliff May this morning. Cliff is the president of the Foundation for Defense of Democracy. Cliff May, welcome back, first of all. Second of all, what's going on, and why can't we get a handle on this problem in the Mideast?
Well, because we're self-deluded to a great extent. We don't want to look in the eye what's going on, what's been going on. Well, not just since the attacks of 9/11, but I would argue since 1979, when you had in Iran what was called, and still is called, the Islamic Revolution. And it was meant to be a global revolution, and it was, and it is. The Iranians are spreading their global revolution, and most consequentially right now, they're saying, look, we're building nuclear weapons. The U.S. is saying, well, let's have an agreement, and that agreement, was, as Henry Kissinger and George Shultz said in a recent op-ed, the agreement was meant to prevent Iran from getting a nuclear weapons capability. Instead, it is providing them with the means to get a nuclear weapons capability. And you have more than one jihadist group. We can talk about what the word jihadist means if you want. Out there, we have both Sunni and Shia jihadis. They are rivals, but they are spreading in more and more countries and becoming more and more of a threat to the United States and to our allies.
You know what, Cliff May, though, what an interesting point you make is 79, the Shah is run out, and we all remember that. Those of us who are older, you remember that. And that was the beginning of this so-called caliphate, you're saying.
I mean, a lot of us remember it. I remember it. I was actually there. I was sent as a young journalist for Bill Moyer's program to do a documentary in Iran in 1979 when the Ayatollah came back. So I've been kind of obsessed with this for a few years. And yes, here's what happened very specifically. You have the Iranian Revolution. They said we are going to restore the glory and power that Islam had for more than 1,000 years in the world, as indeed it did, before the fall of the last caliphate around World War I. That was the Ottoman Empire. And then in the Sunni world, a lot of people said, look what's going on here. We got the first modern nation dedicated to jihad against the infidels. And it's Shia, and it's Persian. It's not Sunni. It's not Arab. That's no good. Where is our jihadi nation? It's supposed to be Saudi Arabia, but those damn Saudi princes, they have too good a time going skiing in Aspen and shopping at Harrods in London and drinking scotch with their infidel buddies in Washington. And from that rose Al-Qaeda, and from Al-Qaeda rose the Islamic State. And by the way, the Saudis also contributed to it in their own way because they didn't want these new jihadis, people like bin Laden, coming after them. So they bought off a lot of them as best they could. And they said, we're in favor of jihad too, just not here at home. And they began to set up madrasas, these schools in places like Pakistan. And they didn't teach engineering. They didn't teach dental hygiene. They taught jihad, a war against the West, a war against Christians, Jews, Hindus, Buddhists, Yazidis, and, of course, moderate Muslims.
You know, Cliff May, how do you stop that education process happening over there?
Well, we should have been reading the riot act to the Saudis a long time ago saying, look, we got a problem. If we're going to get along, you cannot be going around the world teaching people to kill us. That's really not such friendly behavior. You understand what we mean? And we're not going to let you just do that forever. The Saudis are somewhat in a different situation right now, but it's going to get worse, not better at this point. Why? Because the Saudis understand that Iran is as much, in fact, more of a threat to them as it is to Israel or to America or anybody else.
Wow.
And so they are going to have to do something about that. And if that means they support Al-Qaeda again or the Islamic State or anybody else against the Iranians to stop the Iranians from destroying the Saudi kingdom, they will do so.
You know what, Cliff May, explain to us, if you would, Matteo Renzi, the Prime Minister of Italy's meeting with Barack Obama, I believe today. Now, there are droves, as I said before we put you on the air there, Cliff, there's droves of people leaving migrants leaving North Africa, going to Europe. They're going to Italy. And they're throwing Christians overboard. I mean, we have no handle on this. Is what we're hearing true, first of all?
Well, yeah, you certainly have waves of immigrants trying to get into Europe, and they have been getting into Europe. And in a lot of places, I'm afraid, Malmo, Sweden is a famous one, but parts of France as well. you have these immigrants coming in, not becoming French or becoming Swedish, but kind of setting up their own enclaves where very often they are dominated by radical forces, radical imams who say, listen to me, you are not here to become French. You are here to spread Islam in this country, and you will do so, because if you don't do so, we're not going to argue with you. We're not going to refuse to have dinner with you. We're going to kill you. That's what we're going to do. So you also have the indigenous, if you will, population of Europe not having a lot of babies. They're sitting in their cafes, drinking lattes, not getting married, not having babies. So that pretty soon you have this already in a lot of places. The most popular name for a baby boy is Mohammed. And the religion that more people practice than any other is Islam. So you will get over time, very likely, it's certainly been predicted, it's not absolutely for sure, but predictions never are, but people talk about Eurabia. They talk about a place where the caliphate, where Islam will take over. Not much we can do about that. The question is whether or not the Middle East right now, in the next 20 years, is going to be taken over, probably by Iran. Iran is the leading sponsor of terrorism. The idea that we would say to Iran through these negotiations with all our power, okay, we'll give you a means to get nuclear weapons without asking you not to conduct acts of terrorism, without asking you to stop developing intercontinental ballistic missiles, which have one use only. They're not for sending monkeys into space. They're for sending nuclear weapons far away, not Israel, U.S., maybe some parts of Europe. That's what an ICBM does. We're not asking any of that. And we're giving them two ways to get weapons. One, they can be patient, and we'll welcome them to the nuclear club in about 10 years, which is not much. Or they can cheat, and our government says, don't worry, we'll know if they cheat and there will be consequences. Let me tell you, Joe, we won't know if they cheat, and if we do, there won't be consequences, I guarantee you.
Beautiful. Cliff May, president of the Foundation for Defense of Democracy. Cliff, great having you on the show. Thanks so much for the enlightenment.
Thank you, Joe.